Welcome to episode 78 of The Bar is Ankle High. I'm Katie,
I'm Garrett.
and this is the weekly ADHD podcast that explores life's low bars with wit and wisdom.
Yeah.
If you want to support us, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarsankleHigh, and in exchange for your money, we will give you ad-free episodes and an on-air shout out, and you get added to our close friends list on Instagram. Plus, you get video episodes if you want that, and the ad-free episodes you get are like extended cut with a little bit of our tomfoolery included. That usually don't you, cat, like that.
Yeah, that's included. We also, when we have our shit together, do Dysfunction Junction episodes. So you get additional full episode content. It's usually revolving around some kind of hyperfixation that we have going on. And you get lots of commentary and footage of Katie's cats.
Yeah, especially now. Now with that we're doing the video episodes, you are definitely getting footage of my cats.
What specifically of your cats?
They're starfishes. They're buttholes.
You know, for somebody that doesn't have a cat, the amount of times that cat butthole comes up in my life is a lot.
You know, I think it's important to know that the first time that the topic came up between us, you brought it up.
Yep.
And it was because you got caught browsing Etsy at work looking for cat butthole memorabilia.
Coasters.
I don't know.
I was looking for coasters for the table. Actually for one of our Patreons. They were having a rough week, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna send them cat butthole coasters. And that's what I was looking up on Etsy, and somebody came around the corner and asked me where somebody sat, and I almost screamed because they startled me, and then was horribly embarrassed and like couldn't minimize it fast enough.
Yeah.
Long story short, I did find the coasters I was looking
for. What a
for.
relief.
Yes.
Oh, what a relief it is.
And
that's what that song's about, right?
Worth it. It was very funny. Yes, that's what that song is about. It's kind of like how Blinded by the Light is about Mario Kart.
Yeah, and driving on walls.
So what are we talking about today?
So I was actually super excited because I didn't know, like you told me that you were doing attachment disorder or theory whatever. It's going to be disorder. I don't know.
It's
like
the
occupational.
Why? Don't know, but it is. So
so I was just like, yeah, because you had mentioned it in your postpartum anxiety episode, and so I was like, I guess I just assumed that it was related to fourth trimester stuff. But then when you started talking about it, I got really pumped that I was doing this when I was, because I wanted to cover this the week before Valentine's Day on purpose, for timing reasons. And so I was really pumped that that ended up being your topic, because I'm talking about today dating with ADHD. And
woof.
It's kind of, yeah. But I also, like, as I was doing the notes, I thought this would also be just a kind of a great discussion for us to have, because we're both in long-term relationships. And so, like, we're pretty removed from dating, but the whole idea of this podcast was kind of born out of the idea of, like, what would I have done differently if I had known then what I know now with this diagnosis?
That's also, I feel like, how we bonded very early on. Was you were dating, and it was like these horrific dating
chaotic
stories that we both had of just the most trash of humans that we had each dated. But anyway, dating with ADHD. Oh God. And I'm so, like, couldn't be farther removed from it. I've been with my husband for like almost 13 years. Like,
yes,
I don't even know what a date is.
Well,
Nothing
you go on dates, you just aren't dating.
um, haven't gone on dates in quite a while.
You
Um,
guys went out to the Mexican restaurant,
yeah, I
like,
mean, with
recently.
a baby.
But I mean, like, you
So
go on
it's
dates together.
yeah, I guess.
Yes, obviously it's changed since you had a baby, but, like,
Yeah. He'll get mad. I take it back. We go on dates.
yeah, like, it's just not
He's gonna be
dating where you're
so
like,
mad at me.
It's
Um,
justified, you go on dates."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I'm just like I'm so out of that mindset of like doing fun things out of my
Okay,
house right now that it's like I'm
well, so,
disconnected
like,
from it. But
being
dating,
in a
so
so,
far
like,
from it.
being in a long-term relationship, like, the type of date you go on, it's not like butterflies and, "Oh, I wonder what we're gonna do, and is he gonna hold my hand, and are we gonna kiss?" Like,
Hmm.
you don't have that kind of experience with dating, but, you still have dates.
Yeah. I'm not it's
You're gonna be in so much trouble.
yeah. This is like when he was like, "I was set up," and just kept digging
Yeah.
for a hole the other day that
You really are, yeah.
actually, that's a good, like, dating thing too. It was,
Yes.
an internet video that came up in one of our group chats, and a woman was walking around Central Park, and she was asking random men and women, "Would you rather be dating somebody who is out of your league or, like, below your league?" And every one of the men that she asked said they'd rather date somebody that was out of their league. And then
Yes.
every one of the women she asked said that they would rather date somebody below their league.
Yes.
So, I then waited till my spouse got home and I was like, "Okay, so which would you rather?" And he immediately, and I had a feeling that's how he was gonna answer, was like, "I would rather be dating somebody below my league because I have these, like, insecure parts of my personality, my body image that would make me, like I'd be, like, tormented if I was with somebody way better looking than me. So, like, I would rather be the better," and then it just, like, devolved into this just, like, spiral of thoughts, and I was just sitting there pretty much silently, and
'Cause I
he was
think
just
he
like
was realizing that basically what
it
that
sounded
could be
bad.
interpreted as saying is like,
Right,
"You're below me,"
right,
which is
which is
also similar
totally
to the
not what he meant.
conversation. No, it's absolutely, and, like, I knew what his answer would be to that question because that's kind of how he answers all things. He and I answer things very similarly.
Yes. We have realized recently that, Katie and my spouse have a bizarre amount of overlap, in their personalities, and I
And
will
PK
also
and
note
Garrett
when
also
he's
overlap.
editing episodes, he laughs way more often at you than at me. So he'll laugh and I'm like, "What are you laughing at?" He was like, "Oh, Katie just said this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but did you hear when I said this after and it was really funny?" And he's just like he they come out with stuff and I'm like, "Oh, yep, there we go. There's the overlap." And I probably
Um,
have more overlap with PK.
oh, you absolutely
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
So it's just funny that, like, we each have partners that are like each other.
it makes
Um,
sense. Like, I feel
yes.
like that's why we get along so well, like,
Yes.
all and also how, like, all 4 of us, like, we're a
Get
good unit
along.
together.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but it also is similar to that other conversation that you were having with, somehow a different group of friends, which I didn't realize you were allowed to have, but whatever. And so, but
You wanna know
about
the
how
best part of that? So, because I know what you're going into. So this same other friendship between 2
Yes.
couples, I said to them, to bring this full circle, I'm telling them about this video,
Mhm.
which is how they got on this story of what you're about to tell. But when I said, "Hey, I was in this group chat, blah blah blah," my friend goes, "What? Like you have other friends? You have other friend groups apparently? Oh, you're in other group chats?" So like faking
Garrett is
a
extremely popular, you
anxious
guys.
faking an anxious attachment style.
It's
Um
healthy.
It's so healthy. So yeah, it was just like as you said that, I was like, "Oh my god, what a full circle moment." So anyway, yes, go
But
ahead.
yes, so in Garrett's other friend group, whatever, um, Hi, I know you all listen.
Hi,
You
guys.
seem very nice.
I'm just kidding. I have a secure attachment style.
But there was this discussion that in every relationship, one person is reaching and one person is settling, and then I guess, like, you guys polled each other
Yeah, they,
and
like,
they
went
all had,
through
like,
with all these
opposite
couples.
direct yeah, they had,
Yes.
like, opposite opinions of each other, and then one couple was like, "Oh," like, one was, like, super nice, like, "No, I'm reaching. No, I'm reaching."
Yes.
One was like, "No, I'm settling.
Yeah.
No,
And he's
I'm
like, "Oh, yeah,
settling."
you're definitely settling." And then our other friend said that they were both reaching. No, they were both settling.
Yes.
Um, so and I feel like my spouse and I are very evenly matched. I just feel like our personalities, the way we handle things, our senses of humor, like our appearances, I feel like we're just very much like on an even playing field with each other. So,
Mhm.
um I didn't feel like we were really either of those, but it was just the fact that they, like, polled everybody and everybody said the same thing, and then we asked you guys, and Piki was like, "Oh, I'm reaching."
And I understand why he said that, because I am a lawyer, so, like, on paper,
Mhm.
if he's not, like, a doctor, then he must be reaching. Like, I understand
Yeah.
the mentality for that. I just disagree because I think, like, taking away our jobs, then I think I agree with you, your comment about your spouse, like, I think that PK and I are very evenly matched. Like, I think our
Mhm.
temperaments are very similar. I think he also really brings out so much good in me that,
Oh.
um, I wasn't not that I wasn't capable of it before, but I never had, like, a reason to, like, be nicer,
I mean,
which, like, makes me sound like a full psychopath. But,
that's like when we were saying in our early a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how, the neurodivergent nurse, Jamie, joined our Patreon,
yes.
and we were both like, she's too nice for us.
Yes.
We are
And,
not nice enough people to have a friend that nice.
yes, and
Mhm.
and PK for sure makes me socialize a little bit more than I probably would naturally, and, he's definitely way more empathetic, or I guess more willing to engage in empathy, whereas I will, like, I'll just, like, separate myself.
Mhm.
Not that I don't feel badly for you, but it's very easy for me to be like, "Okay, goodbye." Like, you let me
Mhm.
know when you're ready, and, like, I don't wanna infringe and, like, make you feel like you are responsible for my feeling bad for you, I guess.
Mhm.
I should probably talk about my therapist with that.
Yeah,
Um
that might be, remember when we were talking about looping her in earlier? Ugh.
Oops. So anyway, but also, like, every so often I kind of end up on a, like a Reddit habit, I'll say. Like, I don't go, like, into these deep, like, holes into Reddit, but I will, like, find myself checking that more regularly than I would check a different social media app.
Mhm.
And, once I was diagnosed with ADHD, and even before, when I was, like, pretty sure I had ADHD, I had joined a bunch of different subreddits, and so a lot of times the conversations in those subreddits are either from the person with ADHD discussing or asking a question about, dating or issues with dating and relationships, particularly romantic relationships, but sometimes friendships too. Um, and then there's also other communities for people who are the partner of somebody with ADHD and asking for support from other neurotypical people who are dating neurodivergent people and figuring out how to cope with their neurodivergence. I don't recommend going deep into those subreddits if you're neurodivergent unless you want to hurt your own feelings, because I
Yeah.
think, and even in the ADHD subreddits, I think you can accidentally hurt your own feelings if it's the sort of thing like, this person is really struggling with this, they've gotten this sort of feedback from their partner, and if you're not in a good place, I could see myself being, if I wasn't, like, with PK, being like, "He must think that about me too because I do that," and it's like, well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, like, let's not read somebody else's relationship into your own, but it is pretty well documented, both anecdotally on Reddit, but also in various articles, that having ADHD or another neurodivergent condition can make dating and being in a relationship really hard. Um, some specific aspects of ADHD that can make dating difficult is our trouble focusing, forgetfulness, and our prospective memory issues, poor organization, bad time management, impulsivity, emotional dysregulation, RSD, and hyperfixation. So,
That's a lot of factors.
yeah, so and I it's the kind of thing where again, like that hindsight, like I think the biggest thing that I struggled with while dating, and we mentioned it in the attachment episodes, but one of the things that I really struggled with while dating was especially in like my early to mid 20s, I'd say, um, was like the hyper focusing basically and like hyper focusing on the relationship, hyper focusing on the person and thinking or expecting that they would be as into me as I'm into them. Or if, okay, so they want to go steady, they want me to be their official girlfriend, make it Facebook official, whatever. But then my expectation for what that meant was much more intense than what they thought it meant.
Mhm.
So, and that ended up triggering my RSD because then when the truth of the matter came out and I realized that, okay, maybe they aren't feeling as intense about me
Mhm.
as I am about them, then, it's just like kind of a crazy cycle. But also, when we were in our like early to mid 20s is really when like online dating started being a thing for younger people. Cause I feel like when we were in high
Yes.
school is when like Match and what's the other one?
Oh, it was,
Oh, eHarmony.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um the Like, those I feel like were more towards like, targeted towards people who were way older, established older
Mhm.
than teenagers, I mean, but, like, established in your career, perhaps it's, like, your 2nd marriage sort of thing that you're looking for,
Yeah.
but then when we got into our 20s, early 20s, it was, like, Plenty of Fish was free and, like, for us, and then Tinder got invented and
Mhm.
completely changed, I feel like, the whole dating thing,
Oh, yeah.
um
I mean, yeah, because I was out before Tinder was a thing,
Yeah.
and I feel like it went from being something that, like I mean, and I'm saying this from the perspective of I met my spouse on, OkCupid in, like,
Mhm.
2011, um, and it was, like, just at the point where younger people were going on there.
Yeah.
And I would say Tinder really changed it, but it was really the place where, like, weird people would date or someone
Mhm.
with, like, a really niche interest that was, like, looking for somebody else with a really niche interest,
Mhm.
or older people, were the ones who were primarily using it. So, I think when we met there, it wasn't quite as commonplace, whereas, like, I feel like like probably more than half, I don't know what the actual stat is, meet people online, that wind up
Oh,
getting
it's
married.
gotta be way more than half because I think also, were you in college still when you met your
Mhm,
spouse?
mhm.
So I feel like the the reason that like Match and eHarmony and Plenty of Fish weren't initially used by younger people is because when you're in college, you're meeting people all the time. So it's not
Right.
quite like going to a bar to meet somebody, but you're in classes with people, you're socializing, and you can hit it off with somebody
Mhm.
whatever, and then you have that potentially if it's like your major and a class for your major that you're in together, you have that common interest and that common ground already, um, so you don't necessarily need to meet somebody else,
Right.
especially if you go to a large college or university. The undergrad I went to has like 20,000 undergrads. It's an enormous freaking school. It's stupid.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's why I did online dating at that point because I was commuting and working,
mhm.
so I I wasn't on campus very much. Like, I was really on
Right.
campus, like, for class, and then I would leave because I was usually, like, driving to work after or before class, and then
Yeah.
I'm trying I had, like, these super long days. So, not only was I, like, not really familiar with the people in my program or in my class or that I was taking classes with, but I just, like, didn't really have the time to invest in, like, going out, and then it was like, "Well, what am I gonna do?" Like, go to into the city by myself, like, go out to a bar by myself underage, like, there was no
Right.
real way for me to be meeting people.
Yeah,
So I was
and I
doing
lived on
that to, like,
campus,
meet.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, like, it was just a different experience for me, but once I got out of law school, so I graduated in 2013, and I would say that that was probably the last, although in 2012, I think I met somebody, the guy that I was dating in 2012, I think we met on Tinder, um, but I think 2013 is the last time I dated somebody that I, like, organically met, like, we met at a house party in law
Mhm.
school, um, and, uh after that, it was it was just apps all the time.
Yeah, now that you say that, I think I only dated one person that I met, and I met them, like, through work or something, like, through work,
Mhm.
and it was, like, an organic thing, but, like, everybody at any other dating relationship, anything like that, all came from online dating.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, especially now or more recently anyway, with the app usage versus, like, an online website, is that, especially for people with ADHD, the, like, swipe habits, I mean, it's like a dopamine machine, right?
Yeah,
So,
oh, just
like
the thought of it. Oh my lord.
it's good or bad.
I can just see me, like, glazing over just
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
And, because, to get yeah, swiping, nothing happens, but then all of a sudden you get the alert, "Oh, it's a match. Send a message now."
Oh,
And, like, bring, like, there's some dopamine, and then you get a new message. They replied to your message, and, oh, it's really they say something like, "Hey, you're really cute," or, "I really like your smile," and you're like, "Oh, thank
thank
you."
you. So ooh,
And you get some dopamine from that, but also you have maybe 5 or 6 conversations happening at the same time,
yep.
and so you're just it's a a jackpot payout on a slot machine, like,
It
it's
totally
just
reminds me of a slot machine now that you say that, yeah.
yeah. So it can be really kind of addictive,
Mhm.
and, like, I don't think it's wrong, like, you're not a bad person if you have these feelings, because
Yeah,
it's designed for that, right?
right.
So it's and but one of the problems is that it can be really hard to transition into an actual date when you're getting all these warm tinglies from just messaging all the time.
Mhm.
And or you're dealing with somebody, like, you're messaging somebody who won't transition to a date because they're using you for all the warm tinglies and that's all they
Mhm.
need. They don't need anything else, whether they don't need anything else because they're already in a relationship, or whatever is a different issue. But option B is that it's hard to stop reaching for the app when you're trying to explore things with somebody who you could have a relationship with, because you're now not used to that downtime of, like, oh, they're at work, or they're doing this extracurricular thing that
Yep.
I love that about them, that they have their own life and they do these things, but now I have nothing to do because I was using this app and I'm always messaging somebody on this app. So, you kind of can get into this, like, limbo thing, and you can end up in some tricky situations if you don't have a clear conversation with somebody about your exclusivity status, or maybe you send a picture of your screenshot to them when they have that conversation and you die a little bit inside. Uh, for example, like I did.
Did you ever witness something that was so like, I wasn't the person who did it or received it, but my soul still left my body?
It's that thing where they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cringe. It's giving me cringe, but, like, actually.
Yes. Katie was texting with PK when they first started dating and went to
Yeah, we
send
had
a
been dating
screenshot
for,
to
like,
me.
6 weeks, a month or 6 weeks. We had, like, hooked up at this point, so
Mhm.
it wasn't like we were just talking and I asked this question. But we had been dating, and it was the kind of thing where I was like, I should probably check and see if, like, I need to go get tested, and, like, if he's sleeping around, I wanna know kinda thing.
Right.
Um, because I was, like, genuinely developing feelings for him and really,
It's a
was,
reasonable
like,
time to
starting
have
to
that conversation. Yeah.
yeah. So I text him and, it was, like, a Saturday, so he was at work because he worked 12-hour shifts on Saturdays, and, so I was like, "Hey, just wondering, like, I don't even remember how I phrased it. It was something to the effect of, like, are you still, um, like, meeting people or chatting with people from Hinge because we met on Hinge? Um, are you still meeting people there or whatever?" And he wrote back that was, like, something like, "I haven't talked to anybody from there since our first date." And so, it was very sweet. And I, heart reacted to it and, took a screenshot and thought I was sending it to Garrett, and I just sent it back to PK. And I sent it and put my phone down, and I
Oh
had
my
an Apple Watch at the
god.
time. And so my
Oh.
Apple Watch goes off and it's like, "PK, you know, loved your photo." And I was like, "I didn't send him a photo. Like, what fucking photo did I send
That
him?"
moment is when you start to die, right?
Yes.
Because 'Cause you're like,
Yeah, I hadn't quite
"Oh,
started
what
to
did
die
I
yet. It was
send?"
really that thing of like, did I send him a meme and like just forget?
Yes.
And so I picked up my phone and I was like it really took a minute to register because I was like, why would I do that?
Oh god.
And
You told me what happened and I was like,
it was
"No."
so bad.
'Cause that's the
It
type of
was
thing that also if it's real tenuous with someone, they might just like, no, thank you. I want nothing to do with this."
especially for like the confirmation of, oh, your screenshots get sent to the group chat.
Every
It
bit
was
of it.
bad. Thank
Every
God.
bit
I
of
mean,
it.
honestly, thank God it was PK because he's such a champ for putting up
Truly,
with me after that
truly.
because
He's
holy
got the
shit.
right personality for yeah, to
Yeah, he does
counterattack.
still tease me about it though. And we went out to dinner with his mom and his stepdad recently, and he mentioned that story again. So it'll be in our vows if we get married, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, so um you have that moment where then you rob yourself of all of your dopamine
Yes.
while you slowly shit your pants. And
But also, like, that conversation when you're online dating, it's not like you're just organically meeting somebody and having this conversation. There's an element of, "Okay, so am I deactivating my account?" Like,
yes.
are we liking each other enough to just be exclusive? Are we liking each other enough that I should be deactivating my account that I have? Should I be deleting the account? Not that you can really do that anymore, but, like, back in the days
Well,
when you
because
actually could, like, delete accounts.
there's also a difference though between like because people will be like, "Oh, I deleted the app." And like that's fine, but you can re-download the app and pick up back up right where you started, same conversation, same people.
Right.
Like because it links to your social media accounts generally because that's how they verify that you're not like a bot usually. So deleting the app is not the same
And are you still
as
getting emails? Like,
no.
is it
Well,
like
if you
Facebook
don't delete
where
I think if you just delete the app and you don't deactivate and delete
Mhm.
the account, then yes, they will send emails like so and so likes you, log in to chat with them.
Right.
Although I'm sure that's a setting as well. So, um but yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially these days cuz it's like dating is fraught with this like anxiety of do they like me, don't they like me, are they liking me too much? And I think with ADHD, we have this the emotional dysregulation point,
Mhm.
the RSD points, the hyperfixation, and impulsivity, like when you send a message to somebody without checking. But those types of things can make it really tough to date. And
Yeah.
I think just like getting into a relationship makes it like those things make it really hard um to stay dating for a while because like by the time I had met PK, I had been on like 2 dates with that one guy who went off the deep end, and, like, y'all this guy was, like, uh, what's the guy from American Psycho? That
Oh,
character's
Patrick
name?
Bateman.
Patrick Bateman. Um, like, straight up very, like, it was weird. It was so weird, and he snapped, not, like, I mean, on me, but, like, via text message, so it wasn't, like, a harm or anything, or, I wasn't at risk, but it was definitely, like, one of those things where I was like, "I'm
You fucking could have
certain
been
that
at
this."
risk.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
and it was just the kinda thing where I was like, "How many bodies have you buried, my dude?" Because, like, this is an abnormal reaction to me saying, like, "Hey, I think we're at different places in our lives, and it's just not working out for me," turned into, "Fuck you, you're a bitch, you led me on, da 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 da."
Yeah,
Like,
that
I mean, that whole
he
thing was just so strange.
I'm not like I guess I'm pretty cynical. But he was definitely somebody that as time went on and you would be like, this is what's going on. There were so many red flags where I was like,
Yeah.
why is he reacting that way? Why is this causing such an angry reaction? Or what, that shouldn't have caused him to flip out about whatever it was. So there was definitely like, and then
Yeah.
it just really devolved very quickly.
Right, and we went on, like, 2 actual dates, I think, and then 1, like, golfing date
Hmm.
where he was like, "Oh, I wanna learn how to golf." So we went to a driving range, and I showed him how to golf a little bit, and, he wasn't very good. He was very bad. Um,
Oh, that just makes
I've
it better.
It was, yeah, I mean, truly, like,
Yeah.
look, if you're not a golfer, I get it, like, listener, it's fine, you don't have to be a golfer, but, like, one of the things when, like, you're learning to swing a club is, like, you don't put your shoulders next to your ears, like, you don't, like,
Yeah.
squinch up like a turtle, and I could not get this guy to drop his shoulders. It was the weirdest thing. It was like
Because
he
he was full of
couldn't.
rage. He just had to like,
I don't know, it was so intense, it was so bizarre. I was like, "What? Put your shoulders down, like, stop it." And then as soon as he'd, like, get into position and, like, lean forward to set up the club, his shoulders would go back up. I was like,
I don't have the
this is why
patience
I
for
can't
this.
be a teacher."
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so I had just kind of ended things with that guy and then met PK, and I was kind of, like, at the point when I met PK where I was like, "If this is a dud, I think I'm gonna, like, cool it for the summer on trying to date and, like, take a
Mhm.
few months off and
Mhm.
just chill." Um, because it was getting, like, obnoxious. Like, and it was just the kind of thing where I was
Yeah.
like, "You all are, like, wasting my time," and I'm not that I have very much to do in my life at that point, but, um,
They were
I
there.
didn't wanna.
There were some real
There's some real doozies.
they were they were bad. It was bad. There was some really bad ones, Katie. Real bad.
Um, I
Let's
feel
not
like,
downplay this with they weren't great. They were bad.
yeah, no, there were some real rough ones. Yeah, there was one guy who, like, I kept trying to, like, check in with him and just like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, because we had made plans for, like, a Thursday evening to, like, meet up after work, and so it was like, but we made those plans on Sunday, which is fine, but then, like, I wanna keep the conversation going a little bit during the week, and so, like, 6:30, 7 p.m. on, like, Tuesday, I'm like, "Hey, man, how'd your day go?" And he was like, "Ugh, that's such a lazy question." And I was like, "W but we haven't talked all day. So, like, what else would I say?" And he even said it like he was late to our date, first of all, but then, um, he said, he was like, "Yeah, but it's just like, that's what everyone asks," and, like, rolled his eyes, and I was like,
'Cause it's
"Well, yeah,
freaking
because that's how you
polite.
have a conversation with people, like, how else am I supposed to break into the conversation if I don't just say, like, 'Hey, how was your day? I'm checking in. I'm interested in how your day went.'" Like, what why would I just start by talking about myself? Like,
Yeah.
because that's the alternative. The alternative is that I just message you a
What the fuck? What
paragraph
do you
about
want me
my
to
day,
Yeah.
and then you choose to respond or not.
Would you
And
prefer
I
I
was
don't give a shit?
well, it was it was just very bizarre. That was a one date wonder. Um, but yeah, so anyway, that dating is a nightmare. Um, and I will note that, like, all of my dating experiences have been pre-diagnosis. So I had no idea that I had ADHD while I was trying to date.
Same.
I didn't and I think one of the things, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, like that RSD thing of like, well, I don't wanna get turned down. I also feel really bad turning somebody else down who's, like, put themselves out on a limb, and I can kind of, like, internalize that a lot where I'm like, "Well, they asked me out and I don't wanna say no," or, um, the idea of it's gonna sound like I had poor self-worth, and I don't know that that's exactly what it was, but if somebody is showing interest, kind of, giving it a shot, I guess,
Mhm.
um, and then you end up in these situations like, I've been stood up a few times for, like, no reason, from what I can tell, but it's the sort of thing where it's like, you could have just told me that you wanted to cancel the date, like, you didn't have
Yeah.
to, like, let me go somewhere and wait for you. Um, but I also think the problem with, like, dating apps in particular is, like, when you stop getting a response from somebody, or their profile disappears entirely, meaning that they unmatched from you or blocked you for whatever reason, even if you weren't, like, talking about anything political or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so I was actually on Reddit a few weeks ago and somebody posted something about like it was like the screenshots of her conversation with this guy who she was like super into and they like their messages were very cute. It was honestly a very vulnerable post. Um Even as somebody who has sent screenshots of conversations to a group chat, they were like, just very flirty, and I don't know even that I would be sharing that with the group
Yeah.
chat because it's just very vulnerable and very
Right,
intimate, and,
right.
um, so I give her a lot of credit for posting this, but she, was, like, hitting it off with this guy, had a great date, they were, like, messaging immediately after the date, and it was going really well, and then she, was like, "Hey, this is really going well, I really want I'm really excited to" because they were talking about, like, hooking up. And she was like, I can't wait to hook up with you. And they, I just want to be honest that I'm HSV positive. So she has herpes.
Mhm.
And uh, was like, it's under control. I manage it with medication. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Da 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 da. And the guy wrote back and he was like, look, like I get tested every 6 months and it's really important to me. And making sure that my partner has been tested before I'm intimate with them is also very important to me. And basically, he was like, "This is a hard limit for me. Like, I wish you the best, but I can't get over it." And she was like, "Well, I can send you like information on it." And he was like, "No, I know everything about it. I don't want to risk it."
Mhm.
And so she like posted this thing and she was like, "I just feel so bad. Like, should I have not mentioned it?" And like, thankfully, all the comments were like, "No, you did the right thing mentioning it. Definitely
Yeah.
mention it. Like,
You
that's the right
gotta.
thing to do."
Yeah.
Definitely mention it. It was right to mention it when you did after the first date. There's no necessarily a reason to mention it before the first date because, like, why foreclose the possibility if he's willing to go there with you or whatever? But, which, brings me to my point that a lot of people with ADHD, not that I'm saying that this happened to this woman, because she, in one of her texts to him, she was like, I didn't like ask for this. Like this was given to me without my consent kind of thing. And which hopefully all STDs are not consensual, I would
Yeah.
assume. But in any event, so she like went through this thing, but one of the things and we talked about it in our one of our early episodes, I think talking about like impulsivity was that folks with ADHD are often very sexually promiscuous.
Mhm.
So make sure you get tested regularly, get tested often. You can go to your local Planned Parenthood. They do testing for free if you're low income. It's covered by your insurance. You can absolutely get tested, especially if you think you've been exposed. They will test you. Um, so go
And
get
when in
tested.
doubt, go get tested.
Yes. And I will say I feel like the queer community is much better at
Oh,
community
yeah.
outreach when it comes to making sure you're tested, knowing your testing status, and like repeat testing,
Mhm.
and making sure that you're using the appropriate protection when needed. I think that as like the representative hetero here, Heteros need to get better at just being, like, loud about their testing status and, like
And, like, doing it, and I think also, like, I remember did I send you that article? It was ages ago, but it was about, like, how condom use is down so much.
I think
Um,
you did or somebody else did, and I, like, gagged because I was like, "Bleh,
yes.
gross." Yeah.
Like, they said between, things like PrEP and, pretty reliable forms of long-term birth control
Mhm.
that, okay, if I don't have to worry about either of those things, like anything else is treatable pretty much.
Right.
So I'm just not going to wear a condom.
Mhm.
What?
Yeah, so,
Which is
it's
just a
probably
gross aside to what we're talking about.
well,
But,
and it's probably worth mentioning though that, especially if you have a vagina, at least, the presentation of things like gonorrhea and chlamydia, is different than if you have a penis, and the symptoms of it are different. And if you have chronic gonorrhea and chlamydia and other STIs, you can actually scar your um, reproductive organs to the point that you cannot reproduce. So
hmm
if you don't want kids ever and you're certain, I guess go off. But that is a huge risk, and we are kind of getting to the point where we're ending up with antibiotic resistant gonorrhea that can't be treated. So it is worth it. You can also get it in your throat. So use a condom if you're giving head. Um, because ew, 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 ew. Um,
Buh, buh.
but
Oh God.
so it's just the kind
We
of thing
gotta,
where like,
yeah, we gotta erase. I gotta do a mental cleanse after that thought.
mhm. And if you have an outbreak of something like that, it can also be a problem if you have herpes and you're having an outbreak, but you're pregnant and about to give birth, then you must have a cesarean section, because the child will, I think, like the risk of being born with herpes in their
hmm
eyes, in their mouths,
Yep.
is like astronomical. But same goes if you have genital warts or anything like that, it can end up in the infant's eyes and
Yeah.
throat and mouth and all that stuff. So it's, be honest with your healthcare providers about your current status. If you're not sure, let them know, and they can, again, they will test you. It's cool.
They
It's
have to
fine.
swipe your butthole anyway.
What? Oh yeah, because they do like some sort of bacterial test or something. You said, right?
Yeah, it's for strep B, I think.
For butthole.
Yes. Strep butthole. Yeah, they swab your cooter and your tutor with
Hmm.
a Q-tip.
Is it I'm picturing like a comic like the size of my fist, like just swabbing.
They don't fist you. They
But
just
like
put the
is that
Q-tip.
the but I'm picturing like a like Leslie Nielsen, like Naked Gun kind of Q-tip where it's
No.
like
No, it's not a fist-sized Q-tip. It's just a Q-tip, but you get it both ways.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to dating. Um, the vulnerability that you have to exhibit while dating is really tough. And it can be really shitty, especially if you think it's going well. Like you said, you have to have that conversation. Are you deleting the app? Are you just deleting your account? Or
Mhm.
are we just going to see how this goes, but we're not like exclusive?
Mhm.
We're just sort of like, I don't know, seeing how it goes for a couple weeks. You have this like limbo. And then if it doesn't work out, it's like, shit, like, what about me? Like, what went wrong kind of thing,
Yeah.
especially if you're not the one cutting it off. And, I also think, like I said, I definitely struggled with hyperfixation. I don't know, one of the one of the articles I read mentioned that ADHDers are prone to love bombing, and,
Huh.
because it's that dopamine rush of, like, being in that honeymoon phase.
Mhm.
So then, uh and I don't know, I couldn't find anything that was like an evidence-based study.
Mhm.
So this is a lot of articles. This is like mostly just anecdotal evidence. There was an article on WebMD actually though, um, that was honestly very nice as far as like WebMD articles go. Like, we weren't diagnosed with brain tumors at the end. Um, but
Great.
it so there isn't much, it's a lot of like story stuff like, "Oh, I struggle with this because of this." And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, yeah.
that you know, the
Still
love
helpful
bombing
though.
thing, I was yeah, oh, it was very helpful. It's in the show notes. But the love bombing one really surprised me because I thought that I was more susceptible to love bombing as an ADHDer because I was being like showered with affection and attention. And then once that was cut off, I'm like trying to do whatever it takes to get that back. So I think
Mm.
that is actually what led to me being in an abusive relationship because it was so effective on me when I was being love bombed that it ended up putting me in a really dangerous situation.
Yeah.
So once I figured that out with hindsight and leaving that relationship, um, I became much more rigid in what I was willing to accept in a relationship. But I
Mhm.
was also 31 at that point, and there's a huge difference between dating when you're 31 and dating when you're 21. Like, there just is. And so whatever. But that honeymoon period has also been a problem for ADHDers because of the our distractibility. Because
Mm.
again, once that honeymoon period dips, if you're not off the apps at that point, um, you can go back to the apps and get a different honeymoon period with a different person. And now you've kind of abandoned the potential relationship that you had
Mhm.
because they're just not as fun. Um, and the other thing that I found, and I see this a lot on Reddit, I don't know that I've really ever struggled with this, but um, it's it's a lot of people struggle with intimacy with their ADHD, but a lot of the stories that I read had to do with like being distracted during moments of intimacy, so
Mhm.
thinking of something else or either like somebody's trying to put the moves on you and you're not paying attention, thinking of something else. I've definitely had that happen before. But also like in the thick of it, like I just which I just chalked up to like being dense and not picking up on like social cues, which is also
Also
an ADHD thing.
possible. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but like a lot of people in a lot of things I've uh looked at on Reddit were saying basically like it can be hard to reach climax when you're distracted and thinking about different things. I feel like the solution to that is to have better sex. Um, like figure out what you need to get to climax and work on trying to communicate that to your partner in a way that
Mhm.
doesn't hurt their feelings. Um,
Which can also come with age.
oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, yeah.
there's no way I would have told a guy 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago when I was 26. There's no way that I would have told a guy, "Oh, do it this way." Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You go ahead. Give me a rug burn on my clit. Why not? Um
Oh my goodness.
But I do think that, and this has more happened to me when I'm like alone doing my own thing, but if I am trying to get myself there as like a stress reliever, whatever, blowing off
Mhm.
steam, and I've got other things on my mind, like if I'm genuinely stressed about something or I have to do XYZ,
Mhm.
I won't get there.
Mhm.
And I don't have a solution for this. Honestly, like I couldn't find anything that was like, this is what you can do instead. Um, I
That I
think
feel
sometimes
like
you're
is practice of
I feel
just
like sometimes you're just not in the mood, and like that's
well, there's
fine.
100% that too, but I think also, like, something I know, like, the times where I've tried to work on mindfulness a little bit, like meditation,
Mm.
because that is something I really have a hard time with, constantly clearing your mind. Like, one of
Yeah.
the visualizations is, like, you're sitting on a bench and there's a road in front of you and there's cars going both ways, and, like, each one of those cars is like a thought process, and you just
Oh,
have to let it drive past you instead of stopping every car. So, like, I have to, like, because the same thing will happen, like, when I'm going to sleep, where it's just like
yeah.
like last night
Yeah.
I was telling Katie, earlier, that I had just, it was not a good sleeping night between the baby and my brain, um where I was stopping every single car.
Mhm.
I was like, "Let's go for a
Yeah.
ride in this one, and then a ride in this one, and then a ride in this one." And instead, if you're letting those cars go past you, you're letting the thought, like, appear and just breeze on by. So,
Mhm.
I think that because there's it that's just how some brains are geared, and it's just what your brain is
Mhm.
gonna do. Um, it's like working with it instead of against it. So either maybe you're just, like, not in the mood and, "Hey, try again later," or maybe, it's the visualization, like, "Okay, these thoughts can just pass by and pass by. Look at, now there's no traffic,
Mhm.
and now I can focus on something." I think is probably
Yeah.
helpful too.
That's a good idea. And probably good to, try to practice that outside of the bedroom first. Um, but also I like, as you were describing that, that would be really helpful for me to practice while I'm at work too, because I do
Mhm,
catch myself kind of like, um which I mean, I use that desk organizer we have with the
mhm.
dry erase thing. I use it constantly.
Which is
Um,
helpful for that type of
for
thinking.
sure,
Yeah.
because, like, there's so many I think currently still there's, podcast, like, stuff on it because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I need to make a merch design for this, and
Mhm.
I need to do the episode square for this," and, like, just those things that are, like, in my head, but, like, I just have to, like, put it down and get it out of the way,
It keeps
even
it
if I
from, like,
don't do it, because
yeah.
let's be honest.
Yeah, but then you're not going, "Oh, I can't forget to do that. Oh, I can't forget to do that."
Yes,
All
and then
day.
inevitably forgetting, right,
Yes.
and then sometimes what I'll do is, like, once my board is full, I'll just take a picture of it on my phone, because then
Mhm.
if it's, like, a grocery list or something, then I know that I can pull out my phone at the store and, like,
Right.
look at what I
Yeah.
need to look at, or sit in my car for a beat at the end of the workday and, like, look at the picture and see, is there anything that I need to do on my way home from work?
Mhm.
So that it's freshly in my head and it's not just me listening to some random podcast on the way home and then I forget to stop and get the thing that I meant to get, which is
Done that
for
no less
sure,
than
like,
10,000 times.
it's that thing where it's like, I'm at the age where now I know why my mom was so mad that she had to stop and get bread on the way home from work. It's so true. It's so true.
I'm almost at the opposite point now where I'm like, "Do I need to make any other stops on my way home? Because 'Cause I'm never out by myself." So there's
Mhm.
sometimes where
Oh,
I'm
there's
like,
that too, where it's like, because
"Hmm,
then if I don't remember the stop I have to make and then I get home and see the thing that, like, triggers the memory of the thing that I was supposed to stop and do, I get so mad.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
my
yeah."
problem. Congrats to our, Patreon members who finally gotten their treats in the mail because I just gave them to PK to put in the mail because I, like, kept looking at them on my desk at home, which is not next to the front door, and, like, not mailing them. So finally, I was like, "Can you just put these in the mail when you go to work?" Because
Mhm. Mhm.
obviously I can't handle driving past a mailbox.
Yeah. How many times did you hand an envelope to me and say, "This needs an international stamp?" And I'd be like, "Okay." And then I would turn around and make a note for myself, even though I can see the address is international. I would literally make a note that's like, "Put an international stamp on this and mail it, please," to myself.
And also, that's the only time I gave you stuff to mail was when it was international.
Yes,
It's
and it
not
didn't
like
it
you were
didn't
doing the
matter.
other mail too.
No, unless I would say to her like, "Oh, I'm about to go walk past the thing. I'll take it right now," and I'll
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, so it's, and I you know, I remember one time in college, I got paired up with this, it was some, I don't know, random, like, gen ed English class or something, and I got paired up with this guy who was, like, very, like, tall, handsome, like, basketball player or something, and we were supposed to, like, tell each other a story about something, and, you had to like, or you had to read an essay to them that you had written or something. You're like paired up working together. And I read him this
Okay.
thing and I was like, great. Like now I get to talk to this guy about this, some like thing from
Right.
my childhood. Um, and we were talking about, I was like, yeah, something about, I describe myself as being very awkward. Because I think it's one of those things like, didn't know I had ADHD,
Mhm.
couldn't really put my finger on it, but I just had these like quirks about my personality that it was also like, oh, it's just the way it is. Just got to work with it,
Yeah.
I guess. Cause
Well, and it's not like you didn't have friends as evidenced
right.
by all your other group chats. Uh,
Hot bullshit that is.
but
Um,
I felt the same way because, like, I had friends and I had extremely close friends. I didn't have
yeah,
very
yeah,
many.
yeah,
I had, like, 4 very, very
yeah.
close friends, but that's all I really needed, and, like, that was
Mhm.
fine for me. But looking back, I think most of my closest friends are neurodivergent in some way or another.
Oh yeah, and it's like, and I had definitely had like other kind of my most of my friends were like quirky people.
Yes,
Um,
yes. I've had people say that to us or to me about the podcast where
yeah.
they were like, "Oh, no, you obviously had ADHD in high school. You were just, like,
Who
high
me?
functioning," or however they phrased it. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, "You're just like, you were definitely out of control."
And I always had a very hard time with that, like showing interest in someone showing interest in me because I was awkward.
Mhm.
And I just like wouldn't handle it well. And, I would just like roast somebody instead of just being like honest about how I felt about them. But I said something to this guy about like, yeah, this, and I'm so awkward. And he looked at me and like very sincerely, because he was like really, I was impressed because he was, I had
Taking
dismissed
it
him as like
seriously.
not being a deep person.
Yeah.
And he's listening to me like very thoughtfully. He goes, "You're not awkward." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." he was
No,
like,
that's my thing,
he
jock
was like,
guy.
"You're not awkward." And it's like I think back on it now and I'm like, "Wow, that was just like really nice that he was like really trying to like make me feel like no, like you're not weird. You think you're weird, but you're not weird."
Yeah,
Um, but I
because I think that's
definitely
also especially with dating, it's
I was weird. I was weird. Like anybody that I dated at any point between the ages of like 18 and 21, I was weird. It was just part of the package. It would be if I was dating now, it would still be part of the package. I would just have more awareness as to kind of why I'm so quirky.
Do you
Um,
think, though, that's more, like, anxiety coming to the surface?
some of it was because
Yeah.
I hated awkward silences.
Mhm.
I would rather die than an awkward silence. So I would just like nervous chat the
Remember
whole
that
date.
time you had to announce your pregnancy on the podcast and you just stared at me when I, like, threw it over to you?
No.
I was
I
like,
remember
"We've got
so
an
little of that.
announcement," and you were like, "Yeah," and then you just stared at me, and I was like, "I guess not. I like, it's your announcement." You were like, "Oh, yeah,
Um,
we have a new staff member joining."
my that was rough times. That was rough times.
You were
Pregnancy and,
likewise
and
sleep
newborn
deprived, but
was rough times, but man, the fatigue in first trimester was those rough times.
yeah, it
Um,
was, ironically a pregnant pause while I waited for you to say anything
as I'm
into
like,
the mic.
take it away, Katie. And you're like,
You were like,
no.
Brick Tamblyn in
Yes.
Anchorman where he's just like,
That's me in first trimester. I love
"It's
lamp.
73 degrees in the Middle East.
Yeah.
See ya."
Yeah, and I definitely I would like nervous chat, just bullshit because I just like couldn't stand things being awkward and silent.
I definitely
Um,
overshared a lot when I was
yep.
dating.
hmm
Yeah.
And and I think I was also just kind of I don't think my self-esteem was very high because I
Mhm.
had so much trouble dating and I was just like not good at it. So I
Mhm.
think that I just felt like, okay, I'm unattractive or I'm too frumpy and I'm too this and I'm too that. And like guys aren't interested in that.
Yeah.
And I think that's just how I had kind of cracked it up just to be like that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
Um, and then was painfully awkward in the meantime.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that kind of, I think that comes from a place of neurodivergence where you think, um, I'm the only one like this. I'm gonna do my best. And it's like heavy masking to
Oh
like
yeah.
try to
Yeah.
make it work. And like looking back, it's like, there's so like so many of my relationships, I was like, I was on my best behavior, like compared to like the shit that I'll say and do with PK now. Like the awkward dances I do in the kitchen where then he
Oh
asks
yeah.
me if I've taken my meds yet,
Yeah.
and, like, things that I just never would have done when I was 20. Um,
No. And I was still very much
and
in the like the cool girl
Mhm,
phase where,
yeah,
the not like other girls, and I'm really glad like that has passed. But for a
yeah,
while, like when I was dating, that's like the phase that I was in. Like I was never like super, super feminine. So I was always just like kind of I felt like I mean, most of my friends were boys. I felt like I was that cool girl like trope.
mhm.
Um, not like other girl trope. And I think that that also was a factor in my troubles,
My troubles.
my dating troubles. There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I think, the I mean, having the benefit of a diagnosis, even a suspected diagnosis if you're self-diagnosed or
Yeah.
whatever, um, I think it's just so beneficial because it's totally changed the way that I approach dating and my relationship with PK because it's like, okay, I know that this is how like I need things to be structured.
Mhm.
And even if we have a disagreement or like we get frustrated with each other, um I think knowing that like it's not me, and I mean again it's an amount of confidence, but it's not me being unreasonable if I can't uh accept clean but unfolded laundry as done. And because I won't
Mhm.
use laundry that's not folded because in my head it's not clean.
Mhm.
So like that doesn't work for me. It works fine for PK. He does not care if his laundry is folded or not. But the so like figuring out those types of things that work, um because we have different flavors of ADHD, and like being able to articulate and communicate, okay, I realize that like you need it this way. I need it this way. So like
Yeah.
what if like I don't, I appreciate that you've done the laundry, but if you're not going to fold it, can you at least separate it so that I don't have to dig through, however many barrels of clothes to find what's mine and
Right.
then put it in the dryer and fold it and the whole nine. So like, but being able to have those conversations, whereas in the past, I would have simply, I know, I just took over all laundry
Mhm.
and was doing laundry constantly. And then I was also doing the dishes because the dishes weren't being done. And it's the kind of thing where like I would just be taking on these things rather than saying like,
Can you
I don't.
just do this?
Right.
Can
And
you just do this much more? Yeah.
exactly. And it's not that I'm definitely not perfect, but it's the kind of thing where I'm like, just because I don't put my laundry away in the dresser that I definitely have and should be using doesn't mean that there's no standard for
Yeah.
like what works for me or whatever. And I think I was very, and I think this also goes back to the RSD thing. I was so afraid of rejection
Mm.
that I was really willing to morph myself into what I needed to be to make my partner happy. Um, and I think I'm very grateful for where I am now, thank God. But it's the sort of thing where, like, God, if I had just been diagnosed at 20 instead and, like, could have been working with a therapist since I was 20 about
Right.
ADHD and what that means and how it looks and things like that, how different would my life look? And it's
I
it's just so
definitely
frustrating sometimes.
yes, and I mean, specifically with the rejection sensitivity, um, I just felt like I was rejected so often. Um,
I feel like I didn't try that much, so I didn't get rejected that much. But maybe I just wasn't paying
I would,
attention.
like, kinda, like, put myself out there and then just, like, 100% of the time, just get, like, a, "No, we're just friends."
Mm.
As much as I don't like that, like, friend zone thing, I was friend zoned more than any other human, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
Um, so I just got to the point where I would expect rejection almost. So I think I
Mm.
probably then, like,
Yeah.
shied away from it, and I was just, like, very that's probably part of why I was so awkward.
Mhm.
But again, it was like, you know, things about ADHD. I didn't know anything about ADHD. I mean, we're still like we'll talk about something. We're like, oh my god, I didn't even think about that in terms of this.
Oh, for
And
sure.
yeah, I definitely, and I think because of that like self esteem thing, I definitely also in like a slightly different way accepted things that now I would be like, get the fuck out of here.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
And I think that self-esteem, like, the self-esteem issue comes from that, like, masking thing. Because I
yeah,
think at the end of the day, it was like, well, like, I'm trying here. Like, I'm trying to be good for you,
yeah.
and you're not accepting that. Like, you're not recognizing how much I'm trying or whatever. And so then it's like, my effort isn't even good enough. Like, not only am I not good enough, but, like, I tried so hard and it was still not good enough.
Yeah.
Um, which fucking sucks for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a weird time. It was just such a weird time, and I cringe when I think back on what what I put up with and what dating me must have been like.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember going
I
on a date with somebody who, like we went on a handful of dates, but every time we went out, there was, like, some, like, bomb that he would drop about his life, like, I mean, it was, like, filed for bankruptcy, was still living with his ex-girlfriend, like, almost a year after they
I
broke
remember
up,
this guy.
and there was something oh, he had been unemployed for, like, almost a year,
Yes.
which is why he was still living with his ex-girlfriend, and, like, it finally ended when he had, like, invited me over to his apartment, and I was like I mean, I'll be honest, I was, like, 20, I ghosted him, probably shouldn't have done that, but at the same time, it was like he was, like, a full 10 years older than me,
Mhm.
and I, as a 20-year-old, was like, "That's messy."
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and there was just a lot of things like that where I'm like, "Maybe you shouldn't have been" not me, but maybe this guy shouldn't have been, like, dating, and I think there's also the component
Mhm.
of I think back on how young I was, and I think back on things that I tolerated, and I look at men like, "How dare you?
Oh,
How
totally.
dare you rope little angelic baby Garrett into whatever this bullshit was?"
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I feel like Kelly on The Office. Yeah, I have a question. How dare you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I dated a guy, when I was in college who was 10 years older than me. Um, it was like a summer fling, basically. Like, I was home for the summer, working at Panera. He was a customer, whatever. And then I went to Europe for a month, um, and came back and, like, said something like, he said he was going to the gym or something, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, I should go too." Like, definitely had, like, some real good bread when I was in Europe. And his response was, "What, there aren't gyms in Europe?"
Bu
When, like, in actuality, first of all, I didn't gain weight when I was over there.
I'm so
Oh, for sure. Like, and it was the
That just
yeah,
made
like,
me really,
"How
really
dare
angry.
you, sir?"
Yes.
Like, what in the hell? And there was, like, plenty of other things with that guy too, but I was just like, "What?" Like, and again, I mean, I was 20 and young and shouldn't have tolerated it even up to that point. Like, he was a 31-year-old nothing. Like, he had
Yeah,
nothing to
yeah,
show for
yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where, like, okay, yeah, like, I guess it kind of makes me sound or an incel would say that I sound like a gold digger, but, like, no, what do you have to show for yourself? Because, like, as a 20-year-old, I have more than you. Like,
And you're
why?
judging me
Right.
for what? Not working out on vacation?
Right. So
Ugh,
there was that.
God.
There was another guy I went on one date with who was trying because so I majored in medieval and pre-modern history, which includes like ancient Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. Um, and I always loved ancient Egypt as a kid. And so we were talking about because he was like, "Oh, I really love," like, we're talking, and he's like, "I really love ancient Egypt too." And I was like, "Yeah, da 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 da." And he's like, "Do you know anything about like the artwork?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, actually, I have like a minor in art history, so I do, in fact." And so we started talking, and he was basically telling me how like aliens built the pyramids, and I was like, "They didn't." And he's like, "Well, we don't know how they were built." And I was like, "So why is
People.
aliens your conclusion?" And it was effectively the reason for his conclusion was that fucking Ancient Aliens show. But then he's like talking to me about it and he's like, "Well, there's artwork that shows like hands coming down from the sun, like rays of the sun, and they're calling it blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I know exactly what piece of art you're talking about. That's Akhenaten's father, actually. Um, and he was the first known monotheist ruler and believed that Ra was the only god rather than being a polytheistic religion that had existed in Egypt up to that point. And he tried to change Egypt to monotheistic religion in favor of the god Ra, who is the sun god, which is why, as a royal family chosen by the god, in this case, just the one god, not multiple gods. It was the god bestowing his family because it's a picture, it's a fucking portrait of him and his two kids and his wife. And so I'm like explaining this to him, and he's like, "But we don't know actually what that means." And I was like, "Yes, we do, because we have the Rosetta Stone and we can translate the hieroglyphs." And he was like, "That's not what that means." And I was like, I I literally went to college for this. Like, and I had this whole argument with him in like a cafe. It's
I do
like,
remember one time, this guy was very quiet, which no worse person for me to be on a date with than somebody really
oh
quiet
man,
because I would
same.
just not shut the fuck up. And, I don't remember how libertarians came up, but I know that I had a lot to say about how fucking stupid I thought libertarianism was,
Mhm.
and just went in on it and found out after the date that he was libertarian.
That's probably how it came up because that's all libertarians will fucking talk about. So,
He
I
didn't
blame him.
identify himself as that. I just yeeted myself right into how
Well,
fucking dumb it was, and
you
then
must have smelled it on him,
I
or
must
he
have
had
seen
some
his Facebook or something, and I was like,
there
"Oh,
had
he's a
to be
libertarian."
something. Like, they always lead with that. It's so
Yeah,
frustrating.
yeah.
Um,
Some
but yeah,
reminders out there.
also, yeah, there's so many like, thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
PK, please don't leave me. Um,
Yeah, our intern can never, ever divorce me. Sorry, but I'm not
yeah,
cut
I
out for
can't
it.
I feel and I refer this to the scene for a lot of things, but like in GI Jane when she's like, "I can't go through that shit again." That's me with dating. I can't go through it again.
Yeah.
Can't,
No.
shan't,
People,
shorn't.
there's a lot of apps and nobody's wearing condoms, and I am too feral at this point.
Yeah, like, just the thought of, like, having to respond to people, because like, some people will get so mad if you don't respond right away, and I can just see myself fully disassociating from it altogether. If I have to date again, it will be somebody that I meet in real life, and good luck to them because they will meet
Yeah.
me as I am, good
It's
or bad.
yeah, I just feel like
Um,
there's gonna be extra bad with me
yeah.
if that ever
But
happens.
before we wrap up, I did wanna go over safe dating tips. Um, Always share your date
Yeah.
plans with at least 2 people, including where you will be, what time, what you're wearing to the date, and update them during the date if your plans change or you go to a second location. Share
Mhm.
your date's contact info with those same people and verify your date's identity before you go out. Um, for me,
Mhm.
I'm always really suspect of people who don't have social media or say that they don't really use it or whatever. Um, I know it's not true for everyone, like Garrett, for example. But like if I can't find your
Sorry.
LinkedIn, like I don't know, there's just like something about it. Like I need to be able to verify who you are and that you say you're the person
Yeah.
that you claim.
Which, like, generally,
Um,
even if you're, like, off grid, if you Google somebody, you're gonna find something. So
right. Trust your gut. If the person's giving
mm,
you a weird vibe, just leave. Or if it's before the date and they're giving you a weird vibe, just cancel.
yeah.
You can let the bartender know if you're at a bar that you feel uncomfortable, excuse yourself to the bathroom and try to catch the eye of a waiter or manager if you're feeling uncomfortable. A lot of bars these days have signs in their bathroom about like you can order this drink if you're feeling uncomfortable or you need
Yeah,
something.
like, code words.
Um yeah, so you can Google like your area if there's something like that. I think also probably like a local Facebook dating group would have that information. Um and
Also, if you're on Facebook, joining those local Facebook dating groups.
especially like
Um,
are we dating the same person type
yes.
shit.
And do you remember when I had somebody pop up that had, like, been from my past on one of those things? I had actually, I think, ultimately showed up on Reddit, but it was a warning about a guy who was like a Lyft driver or something, and he had
Oh,
been roommates with, an ex-boyfriend. So I knew him, and he was, like, stalking this woman.
Jesus.
Yeah.
No, I
So
don't
join
remember that
those
story.
because don't you remember that? I didn't tell you about the time that but yeah, but, like, join those because, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's
that's scary.
no, and it is the kind of thing where, like, you do have to look out for yourself and, like, make
And
like,
that's only,
watch your
like, 1
6.
degree of Kevin Bacon.
Well, that's just it, and, like,
There's
especially
way
I
more
mean
Kevin Bacon degrees than that.
right.
I just really
Um,
wanted the joke to work, I'm sorry.
that's okay. I heard Kevin Bacon degrease, and I was like but, you know, like, knowledge is power, and having that kind of information available
Yeah.
to you, is just very helpful, and, you know, stay safe. Go to a place that you've been to before. You can also call a bar ahead of time and ask if they have that kind of setup,
Yeah.
for as far as, like, the code word situation is concerned or whatever. Um, as we said before, use protection if you're gonna be having sex and touching other people's genitals with any part of your body. Get regular STI testing, and, you know, be upfront about it. And, you know, I would recommend setting that as a hard boundary with whoever you go out with, that you want, you know, a copy or to see that they've been tested recently and that they're negative for everything. Because if you're going to put their parts inside your parts, or your parts inside their parts, you are entitled to that information, as far as I'm concerned. Um, and if you are currently in a potentially dangerous relationship or someone you know is, you can safely visit thehotline.org without leaving a digital footprint and access information about making an exit plan and keeping yourself safe while leaving that relationship. Um, Also, don't depend on your date for transportation to your date.
Mm. Yeah.
Whether you're taking public transport or you're driving yourself, don't get a ride with your date. I would say probably the
No.
first several dates, don't do that. Um, because you need to be able to leave. Like,
Yeah.
just be in control of your own means of transportation and exit if you need to get out of there. Um, but yeah, that's what I got on dating with ADHD.
Yeah, that's a
Happy Valentine's Day.
you know what? Fuck that. Happy Galentine's Day.
Yeah. This will come out
We
February 8th.
we prefer Galentine's Day to Valentine's Day on this podcast.
Mhm.
That was
But
some shit.
yeah, I mean, in the
Data.
meantime, I guess, I don't know, trust your gut.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say the same thing. Trust your
Oh,
gut.
really?
And don't I'm just so mad thinking about the stuff that we were putting up with, and I just can't get over
Oh,
what that guy said to you. I'm still fucking mad about it. And I'm trying to come up with something, like, aggressive, but also kind of funny, and I can't. I'm just so mad about it. Stay
the
mad.
crazy guy or the one who told me that I'm a big old girl?
The one who said there's no gyms in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm just mad about it. So stay mad.
Stay mad and trust your gut and, get tested
Yes, and wear a condom
and wear a condom
because the bar's
because the
ankle high.
bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Bye.